Hello, you lot. Welcome to the group chat from Footy Accumulators and our friends at Betfair. Alan McInally, Will Perry with you. I'm going to start out by talking about rumoured, and I put that in inverted commas, a disagreement between Sterling and Foden and Pep, as in Sterling and Foden apparently have complained to Pep Guardiola that their game time is not enough this season. Sterling wasn't in the squad at all. He wasn't even on the bench for the game against Fulham. Foden was an unused substitute. And the official word from Manchester City at the time was that Sterling was rested. And then the confusion came because Pep said in an interview that he was left out for tactical reasons, hence why there's been a bit of digging and this story has come to light. It may be absolutely nothing. And look, they're going for the quadruple. So quite rightly, Pep is going to have to manage his squad and say, look, you're going to play minutes here. It's not as if they're only going for the Premier League and, you know, the League Cup in April. They've still got those other two competitions. But I'll throw this at you, right? Phil Foden, and we all thought that this was his kind of breakthrough season, didn't we, with David Silva out of the way. And it has been, and he's been brilliant, and he's added goals to his game. But he started just 14 Premier League games. They've played 30. So less than half of the Premier League games that City have played. Sterling started 23. So what do you make of that whole situation potentially? And look, back to your playing days as well, when you want to play every game. You don't feel tired, but you have to listen to the manager.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I think it probably happens maybe more. I think the best players in the team in my day played as long as you were fit. There was a little rotation, certainly determining on. I can remember one specific in Munich where we'd already gone to Rangers and beat them 3-1. And then the game was obviously in Munich, but we had a huge game coming up on the Saturday against Eintracht Frankfurt, which at the time between Bayern was massive. And he actually said, look, he never said it's up to you. He said, it's entirely up to you. Do you want to play? And I wanted to play. It's against Rangers, obviously, etc. And I played. We drew 0-0. And I remember before the game going, hey, come on. And he was like, whoa. Listen, we've already won this. Think about Saturday. And that was a kind of weird scenario. I never really had that before. So the lads are just going to have to put up with it. I think you in your intro, Will, got it spot on. He's managing the team just now. You know, bigger fish to fry and all that jazz, with the greatest respect to Fulham. You know, he will be such an integral part of the bigger games, Sterling. But you surprised me when you said that Foden's only started 14. I would never have guessed that in a million years. I don't know why that I think he's had much more of an impact as a starter for Manchester City. So, I mean, listen, it's a hard team to get into, never mind stay in. But I think the whole thing about, there's a story at Man City. I'm like, the story is you're going to be champions, and Pep Guardiola is making sure when he calls upon you, you better be ready and you better be fit.
Well, that's it, Al, isn't it? Because there'll be, journalists out there, people trying to get a story on a team who's absolutely flying. And, when everything is going so rosy, people try to bring them down. That's how it works, particularly in this country. But if you are Phil Foden and you are Raheem Sterling, you will also be thinking about game time because of the Euros, because of, England around the corner. And look, they should both be in the squad, but they want to be playing as much. You can see from the players' side of it. So you can see both angles, can't you?
Yeah. And I'll quite like that from the players, because I don't see an arrogance from them giving it, if I don't play another game for the end of the season, I'm in the squad anyway. Now, they could have that attitude, but the fact that they're thinking, well, hang on a minute, I need to make sure I'm in that squad. So how can I get in the squad? I need to play. So I'm saying to the gaffer, I need to play. I need minutes. I need to make sure that the manager of England sees me and make sure I'm in a position that they're going, yeah, he's definitely in the squad. So I quite like that attitude from the lads. It's just, as a football player, if you don't want to play football, then in the position that these lads are in, and they do, by the way, obviously they do, then I think it's a really helpful thing for Manchester City, and also for England, by the way. And not that the lads need me to tell them, but I think they're both a shoe-in to be involved. But, when you're that age, you're like, I don't know, where's the game? In the back garden. Right, let's go play. They want to play. And that's what Pep's having to do, is juggle the pack. And he'll have sat the lads down and said, look, I'm the manager of the football team. I'll tell you what you're going to do. But when I do ask you, you better be ready to go. And that's the biggest thing for the lads, rather than complaining how much game time they're getting at the moment with some of the big games that are going to be coming up for Manchester City.
And Pep gets annoyed, doesn't he, every time that one of his players even mentions the word quadruple. And Zinchenko is the latest victim of that, because he's been asked about it, and he's asked the question honestly, and he sort of said, well, yeah, look, we're in all 4 competitions. And Pep has been like, no, so he'll be saying that to all of his players. Do not mention the 4. Do not jinx it.
No, exactly. It's difficult not to think about it in the back of your mind, that what you can't do is fuel the fire on people that want to talk about it. So, I think it gets to maybe not so much middle of March where we are now, but certainly when it gets to, you've played 2 games in April, you can see the end of the season, and you're still in all the competitions, and they already might have a trophy in the bag by then, with the cup final coming up against Spurs. So City are still in an incredible position that they might just manage this, but there's getting ahead of yourself and forgetting about, the job in hand. And that's what I think he has to do with his players. I mean, we hear it every year, game by game. Oh, yeah, there is nothing more you can do than just go game by game and properly prepare for the game that's coming in front of you, rather than 2 weeks' time we play X, Y, and Z. And that's how they've got to take it. It's as simple as that.
I want to talk to you about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Okay, left out of the North London derby, not out of the squad completely. He was on the bench, but he was an unused substitute as Arsenal, came away with a brilliant win against Tottenham, having gone behind as well. So I was at this game, and we spoke to Mikel Arteta before the match, and we were, trying to get out of him what had happened. He said it was for disciplinary reasons before the match, wouldn't go into it. So obviously then all the speculation starts, and look, it comes out, it's not been confirmed, but that he was late on the morning of the match to the hotel. And it was a kind of an accumulation of tardiness, of timekeeping. And there have been a few other bits and pieces that, again, not confirmed by Arsenal, but, that he went to go and get a tattoo in February that was kind of away from the bubble. So there was like an accumulation of disciplinary issues. He's the captain. He's 31 years old. What's it like when you are at a club, and I don't know if you've ever had it before, and the captain needs to be punished? And I mean, timekeeping is a huge thing in football, isn't it? So if you've got the captain being late, then you have to set an example as a manager.
I was delighted when I heard what Mikel Arteta did, and you know how I love Aubameyang. I mean, I've been harping on before he even got to this country, for God's sakes. But you have to set an example. It's as simple. I mean, you're talking about timekeeping and a hierarchy within football. You've got to have it. You've got to have the young players know their position. You've got to have someone as a head of the team to make sure if there's a problem within that team that he goes to the manager, not everybody chapping the door. I mean, the best one ever, and I couldn't believe this, at training at the beginning when I went to Munich, as players, you kind of go out, you kind of go out in dribs and drabs and get ready for the coach coming out and, passing and do little drills, etc., etc. Originally, they were like, oh, sit down, we can't go out yet. And I'm thinking, why the hell can we not go out yet? Augi's not ready. We need to wait for Augenthaler, and then we go out behind him. Training. Not a game, training. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. And the other thing was, we'd have 3 tables. You'd have Hunes and Beckenbauer and everybody else on the kind of normal table. And then you get two tables of 10, 20 players. You could have a beer with your dinner if you'd won a championship or you were an international. That's it. The new players coming into Munich, big players as well, didn't go like that. Well, I'm having a beer. It was almost like, I'll work until I get this. So you have to have this structure within the football club that A, the manager's running the whole shooting match, and B, the captain is responsible for anything that happens at the football club, especially with the players. And if it's a lateness, well, I remember loads of players being late, and it was just normally a fine. Pay a fine, sorry, gaffer, no problem. But I think Mikel Arteta genuinely had to make a statement to say, he can't do it. So make sure you don't do it. And if you do, you can sit in the back of the stand and watch us win, and they won, which is even better for Mikel Arteta. So I was delighted for Arsenal. I really was. And hopefully the players don't think that it's too much of a holiday camp. And I think that's what Mikel Arteta's trying to get.
Well, that's it. It works when you win, doesn't it? And it was risky and it was brave, and it paid off from Arteta.
Yeah, but I don't like that, Will, saying it. So, well, what's risky and brave because they got stick for it? The manager did the right thing.
Yeah.
Seriously. Who cares? I don't give a rat's.
My question.
I don't care.
My question to you this,
5-0. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, for example, if it was a more serious breach of discipline, he wouldn't have been on the bench. So we're assuming he's on the bench because it was timekeeping, it was tardiness. But is that a punishment, being on the bench? Get out the squad completely, no?
Well, there is that. And I think Mikel Arteta obviously knows that he's such a good player. And had it gone, Pete Tong, he could always have brought him on and then bring him on under more pressure to say the reason he never started.
But that's not a punishment, is it? Like, oh, look, you've been a naughty boy. Sit on the naughty step. You've been late. But if we're 2-1 down, we need you on for 20 minutes, mate.
Yeah, there is that, genuinely. And incidentally, I wouldn't have been against them sitting at the very back of the stand. I really wouldn't have, because you can't have rules for one and rules for other. You have your best football players and you can give them a little bit of rope. But when you're talking about collectively, when everybody has to be there at 12:50, it's not 12:51, it's 12:50. If we're training at 9:15, it's not 9:60, it's 9:15. And incidentally, if we're training at 9:15, you better be there for 8 o'clock in the morning, not 1 minute past 8, for a good hour's preparation before we start training. Everything should be set down for a football player in terms of, I know my structure, I know where I should be, and I know what I've got to do. So I was delighted that Arteta's taken a real stance, because I think too many people think he's a soft touch, and I think too many people think it's easy at Arsenal. It should be harder, and it's not. And I think that's what he's trying to get through to the players.
And look, just finally on that, and I'm not slamming Aubameyang because neither of us know him particularly, as a person, whatever, and what he's like. And he may be great captain material behind the scenes. But does he strike you as a captain? And even if you take the timekeeping issue, the reported timekeeping issue out of the picture, is there not a more obvious captain in the likes of Kieran Tierney, for example, at Arsenal? Essentially, they've made their best player, a player that they wanted to keep. He's now got the new contract, but is he a captain?
Well, I'd need to watch him in training. I need to be in and around him to answer the question. I don't see him as a captain because, well, I was the best player and I wasn't made captain, so that's not right. But I had at Celtic we had Roy Keane and Tommy Burns, and then at Villa we had Alan Evans, who was just a tower of a man, and steeped in Aston Villa's history. And then obviously, you talk about Scotland and, the likes of, Alec McLeish and Willie Miller, and my God, real leaders within a group. And obviously Bayern's Augenthaler, he can walk in water, for God's sakes. But as a captain, Aubameyang, probably not, actually. Well, I probably don't see him as that. But then again, it's really difficult to answer the question, because you need to see them every day, and you need to see them the way they respond and associate themselves with other players within the group. And I think he's obviously good at that. Otherwise, Mikel Arteta, there's no way he would make him captain. You're not just captain because you're the best player. You're genuinely not. Because if that was the case, we would never have a goalkeeper as captain ever. And a captain goalkeeper, for me, I'm pulling my hair out, because it's a joke in terms of where you need to have someone who's a proper mouth during the game that can influence people. That's a captain. And I don't think so far, he certainly hasn't showed it on the pitch for me, Aubameyang, as yet. But Mikel Arteta makes the decisions, and maybe from Monday to Friday. And like I say, the way he treats the other players, he's been a good captain, a good role model, but he certainly wasn't the last couple of weeks.
What do you make of Southampton this season, Al? They seem such a confusing side to me. They were top of the Premier League for the first time in their history this season. And now potentially in the mix for relegation. They've only got 33 points, so they are definitely not out of the woods, are they, in terms of the three going down? They're only 7 points above the relegation zone. Ralph Hasenhüttl, to me, seemed the next obvious candidate. So say, for example, Mikel Arteta, I'm talking a few months ago, had left his job. Jose Mourinho leaves Spurs at the time, Frank leaving Chelsea. Ralph seemed a candidate to be in those teams, to be a top 4, top 6 manager. And if not in the Premier League, then going back to, the Bundesliga. He's finished second with Leipzig in the Bundesliga. He's under huge pressure now. He's climbing up the ranks in terms of the next manager to leave his role in the Premier League. 1 win in their last 12 games. But listen to this. That doesn't tell the full story. Out of those 12 games, they've lost 10. And they are sliding down the Premier League table. It's a massive next 3 games for them. Burnley, West Brom, Palace. On paper, you take those games, wouldn't you? But the way that they're playing, they're struggling against the strugglers as well.
He's favourite for me to lose his job, to be honest. Well, I didn't see Southampton being in this position. They'll blame injuries, loss of form. They've been battered a couple of times and, bounced back from it. But I think the result at the weekend emphasise that all is not just as rosy as we thought at Southampton, because that was an opportunity at home to beat Brighton, to be quite frank with you, and they couldn't do that. And that's a problem. And I think he probably tops the managerial casualty list for me, because right now, I think they're properly in this. I really do. I know there's a little gap between them and relegation, but that can be swallowed up so quickly. And the way they're playing, if they don't get a minimum of 2 draws and a win over the next 3 games, then I'll be looking at see what price they are to go down. Genuinely, that's how bad I think that the last, well, certainly even 2021 has been for Southampton. And it has been a surprise, because you're right. I think you and I actually spoke about it, that, you know, after the thumping they'd got with 8, 9 goals, whatever it was, they'd actually shown real resolution to come back in. And, you know, they talk about Ward-Prowse and the boy Ched. Was it Ched Evans? And obviously with Danny Ings and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And even defensively, they'd look so much better. Right now, I ain't putting any Southampton result in our, you know, Footy Accumulator ACCAs are in like that until I see some kind of form change. And that's what a lot of Southampton fans will be hoping for.
They might be signing players like Ched Evans in the future. Che Adams at the moment, but they might be the way that they're going down in League One or League Two.
So Ched, where's Ched? Is it Blackburn, isn't he? Is it Blackburn? He's somewhere like, yeah, sorry. I meant,
he was at Fleetwood, wasn't he, with Joey Barton before? Look, next one I want to talk to you about is Roy Keane. Roy Keane to Celtic, your old club. Can you see this happening? Is it just a bit of media hype? Is Roy genuinely interested in the job? He played, we have to remember, only 13 times for Celtic. I think he's even said himself he was embarrassed at the stint that he had there. It was a 6-month spell. He hasn't managed a football club for 10 years after the 2 spells with Sunderland and Ipswich. And we all remember how kind of controversial those, I mean, his press conferences were brilliant, weren't they? But, you know, were they successful spells? I don't know. I don't want to say anything against Roy in case he's listening. He spoke to Celtic, didn't he? After, or I think just before they appointed Ronnie Dyler in 2014. So he's been in talks. It's obviously maybe not just something he's saying now. He does want to manage a club like that. It would be brilliant, wouldn't it? From the outside, I mean, you're more on the inside being your old club, but Keane against Gerrard. Against Gerrard in the Scottish Premiership. And we know the club are also on the lookout for a new director of football to oversee the whole football department, along with a new chief scout as well. So there's going to be a big reshuffle at Celtic this summer. Can Roy Keane be top of their plans?
As a football director of football, maybe. Look, the bottom line is here, let's call it as it is. If Roy Keane wanted the Celtic job, Ronnie Dyler is never the manager of Celtic. End of. No chance. And he didn't take it then, Roy, for whatever reason. And I just don't see him being hugely overly interested in it now. Well, I really don't. There's certainly, for sure, there's a shuffle at Celtic that they're going to have to do, because the club seems to be not falling at the seams, but it's been such a disappointing season that, you know, the kind of domino effect has been so that, you know, they've looked no more than average at Celtic, and that's including on the pitch and sort of back room level in terms of who's running the football club and who's in charge of bringing, you know, talent to the football club. I just don't see it, mate. I don't know Roy. I don't know him personally. Spoke to him, I don't know, half a dozen times max. That if he didn't take it back then, which was probably more lucrative a job, not lucrative, but a more, certainly Celtic were in a better position, I should say. He would have to be up for the biggest fight he's ever had in his management career. Although I thought he did really well at Sunderland, because they went with a rattle and won 9-10 games in a row or something, didn't they, to get promotion? But I don't see it. I genuinely don't. As a director of football, I can see on me maybe being involved in a football club at that level. But I have honestly no idea who's going to get the job, although the chap who was assistant manager to Pellegrini, I think, was favourite at one point. So it's a kind of just wait and see at Celtic, because I don't even know if they know what's going to happen in the next couple of months, to be honest.
Look, where next for Chris Wilder? Because there are all sorts of clubs he's being linked with now. Celtic, your old club, Newcastle, Burnley, Crystal Palace. And look, this depends on all sorts of things. It depends on what Sean Dyche decides to do this summer at Burnley. Does he stay? Does Chris Wilder think, look, I'm out of work and I've been working for a long time, back to taking Sheffield United from 11th in League One. Let's remind everyone, 11th in League One to the promised land, to the Premier League. So does he take a little break and think, well, what options will be available to me in the summer? Or does he jump in to a Celtic now before the end of the season? Who knows what's going to happen with Steve Bruce at Newcastle? Would he want to go there working under Mike Ashley? There are all sorts of different things that he'll be asking. Roy Hodgson's out of contract at Crystal Palace this summer. Is Crystal Palace a good fit for someone like Wilder? So a couple of questions to you. Is he still a top flight manager? Can you see him still as a Premier League manager, or is his stock slightly damaged because of what's happened at Sheffield United? And could you see him even managing in the Champions League with Celtic?
Well, I certainly don't think his stock has gone down, Chris Wilder. I think the position at Sheffield United at the moment is pretty toxic. And I've told you before, I was really, really sad and disappointed that it came to the point that Chris Wilder wouldn't be given the opportunity to have, to bring them back up next year. I think the type of person that Chris seems to be is, I can see him having a challenge and taking a championship club, and doing exactly what he did with Sheffield United to prove how good a manager he is. I do think the likes of Burnley or Newcastle or Crystal Palace would definitely be interested in Chris Wilder. Absolutely, definitely. If those circumstances arose that the job became available. The Celtic job, make no bones about it, is a bigger job than any of the clubs I've just talked about. It really is. It's a huge job. Would they take a chance on someone that doesn't really know anything about Scottish football particularly, and certainly with no genuine real attachment to the football club? I'm not sure. I'm generally not sure. Not that you need an attachment to the football club to be manager of it. But I can see Chris probably wanting to stay south of the border and still have the opportunity next season to be a manager. I think he'll probably take stock of what's happened. He'll have learned a few things about the players he brought in and about himself. And I think it'll make him a better manager. But I do see him being the type of person that goes, okay, I'll take the whatever job and I'll get them to the playoffs and I'll get them into the Premiership. And I can see him going down that line probably more than anything else. But again, Will, as we talk about things like this, timing in football is an unbelievably great thing. And the timing will be right. You'll look at the opportunity and think, I can't believe that's come up. I'll take that. And we'll just have to wait for it.
Right. We have talked a lot about Timo Werner on the group chat. And we're going to do it again. Because Chelsea reportedly considering including Timo Werner in a part exchange deal for Erling Haaland, or Erling Haaland, as we're supposed to call him now, from Borussia Dortmund to Stamford Bridge. Timo Werner's 25, Haaland is 20. In his last 27 games, right, for Timo Werner, for club and country, have a guess how many goals he scored in 27 games for club and country.
Oh, for country, maybe 4. For club, he struggled a bit. I'm going to say no more than 7.
So in the 27 games, and that includes Germany and Chelsea, 27 matches, he scored 2 goals, right? And let me describe them to you, because I was at one of them. One was for Chelsea against Newcastle, which he bundled the ball in.
Bundle over the line, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one was against Morecambe in the FA Cup. Okay, they are his 2 goals in 27 games. He cost £45 million. And look, so we know that he'd started very well when he first came over from Leipzig. But last season, this is a guy that scored 35 in 49 appearances for Germany and Leipzig last season. So where has he gone? Could you see that part of a deal? Could you see Haaland coming to Chelsea? Would that be a good bit of business for Chelsea to get someone out that potentially hasn't worked, or, they're thinking might not work down the line? And then you've got Erling Haaland, who scored 37 goals in 35 appearances for Dortmund and Norway this season.
I know.
What would you do if you're the powers that be at Chelsea?
Well, first and foremost, I want Erling Haaland at my football club, right? So, do we have to sacrifice somebody? Probably, absolutely, for sure. To even tease the football club at Dortmund that, look, we'll give you one of our best players that we spent a fortune on, who still has stock high in Germany, by the way. And I think that they may be interested in that, because they're not going to just sell Haaland for money, probably not. And I never thought of this before until we'd spoken about it, Will, that there might be that added carrot into, whoever gets them, to throw one of their best players. So they're getting at least a replacement, never mind the money as well. Because even if they sell Erling Haaland, they still need to spend the guts of that money to get at least a couple of players to replace him. I can see Haaland certainly not being at Dortmund next year now. I really can. Because there's too much talk about him. He just seems to be on fire so much. The Timo Werner was as well, to be fair. That's why, Chelsea wanted him in the first place with the stats that you just said, 30 goals in how many 30-odd games. But I think first and foremost, in terms of, I think it's going to happen, I'm not sure. It would all then again have to depend on whether Werner wanted to leave. Because if he's like, I ain't going anywhere, then maybe that deal doesn't happen. But the bottom line is, I want Erling Haaland at my football club. And we shouldn't be surprised at what happens in football. And that just might be a little aperitif that Dortmund might just bite your hands off if they thought they could get Werner. Werner could get out of Chelsea where it hasn't been great for him, and Chelsea get the man they want.
Well, look, and that adds a fascinating dynamic into it. And also, we should remind people, I know he's 25 and people think that's old in football now, but it's a young lad who's moved to a different country in the middle of a pandemic. He hasn't settled the way that people would have liked him to settle. He may well come good next season. But that's just made me think what you said there in terms of the exchanging players. So let me throw this one at you. So Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United, all teams that potentially would be after someone like Erling Haaland this summer.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about getting a player back plus money, so take the money side out of it, I'm going to give you Gabriel Jesus, right? He'd start for Dortmund, wouldn't he? He would start for Dortmund if he lost Haaland. So you either get Gabriel Jesus, you get Roberto Firmino, you get Timo Werner, or you get Anthony Martial and the money that you want. Who are you going to do a deal with?
Chelsea. Rashford's a non-starter for me. Because he won't want to leave Manchester United. Gabriel Jesus, would he start at Dortmund? Maybe. I wouldn't think that's a guarantee.
Firmino either, would he? And Firmino's got, he's done it in the Bundesliga before with Hoffenheim.
Yeah, no. Firmino's a starter. Absolutely is. I think he's just lost his way a little bit. And I think that's down to the whole shooting match at Liverpool, to be honest. But to answer your question, I'm doing a deal with Chelsea. I'm taking Werner and I'm taking a lump of money. And you can have Erling Haaland. And the boy's going to be a superstar wherever he goes anyway.
Right, Al. What a week ahead. We've got Champions League. We've got some good championship games. We've got Cheltenham. We've got matches at the weekend as well. So much to do. Yes, there we go. Well, you look a bit like what's his name? No, other way around. It's like a other way around as a Kangol. There we go. What's his name? Samuel L. Jackson.
You're thinking of
the Scottish Samuel L. Jackson.
Bryson DeChambeau, that would have been better.
Bryson DeChambeau. Listen to this, mate. Saturday night, I'm going to the Amex. Brighton against Newcastle. What a match that could be. Well, not in terms of quality of football, but what a story it could be. Because if Brighton win that, right, they move on to 33 points, same as Burnley. We kind of already think Burnley are out the woods now. Potentially, you're only going to need 35, 36 points to stay up this season, if that.
Probably.
The record's 34 from West Brom in the Brian Robson Great Escape season. You may well only need 34 this season. So, look, if Newcastle lose out, they could be in serious trouble. And then we know that they play Fulham on the last day of the season. It's getting fascinating. And then on Sunday, I'm doing West Ham against...
Oh, you've got a great weekend.
Arsenal.
By the way, that Brighton game's going to be extraordinary. I mean, I'll certainly be having a little drink watching that. That'll be.
You think they'll stay up now? The way that the way it's changed over the last few weeks.
Well, honestly, we'll be speaking in 3 weeks, and we'll be like, "Do you think they'll stay up now?"
Yeah.
Like it is so unpredictable. But the result that the Brighton got at Southampton is a proper kick in the bum for them. It was an absolutely huge result. And I think we'd actually said, you and I both said, that Brighton hadn't really been playing particularly badly. But sticking the ball in the back of the net had been a problem. In fact, I can't remember who the commentators were, but it was something like, I don't know, they only scored 2 goals in the last 15 games or so, whatever it was. They hadn't certainly been prolific. But this weekend's going to be shaky for a lot of football teams. And, we're getting to a position now in middle of March where every point's a prisoner. So it's almost like don't lose the game, and if we get a point, we'll take that and move on. But it's going to be really, really, really tricky.
I think we're going to have a scenario, right? And look at this. I think we're going to have a scenario on the last week of the season where Newcastle are in the bottom 3 and Newcastle have to win at Craven Cottage to stay up on the final day. I mean, that would be, as a neutral, amazing, wouldn't it? It would be amazing.
Oh,
you'd hate that you'd take it as a Fulham fan. You'd absolutely hate that scenario as a Newcastle supporter.
No, listen. I hope for Stevie Bruce's sake that that's not the case. But there's something else I was going to say to you today. Actually, funnily enough, when I was looking at the bottom three, I said to you ages ago, I don't really fancy Sheffield and I don't fancy Fulham this year because they just hadn't been. And I know Fulham have brought in a lot of loan players, and all of a sudden the thing. But there's something. I don't know. There's something, and I don't want to use the word lovable, but there's something I like about, Fulham and, the kind of history there. And I have no malice towards them, but all of a sudden I've found myself thinking, go on then. I kind of want you to get out of it now. Scotty Parker, a nice guy. He's assistant Stuart Gray. We were neighbours for years at Aston Villa and we played together. So I have a little connection, but I've almost become like, go on then. I hope you get out of it. And I'm happy just for people to say, oh, you said Fulham would go down. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not, you know what I mean? So I don't know if maybe there's a soft part in me somewhere. But I certainly wish Fulham all the best for the rest of the season. And I still think they're up against it, having said that.
Yeah. Right, good to see you, Al. We'll do some winning macas for the weekend as well. And thanks for watching, everyone. Remember, you can join the conversation on Twitter with the group chat, and we'll speak to you next time. Bye-bye.